Hello everybody, and welcome to History Bite number 16, dated August the 23rd, 2020. I'm Walter, your mobile historian and blue-collar scholar. This History Bite is entitled American Loyalists During the Revolutionary War. Now, in studying history, we have often been led to believe that support for the Revolutionary War, and thus American independence, was universal throughout the 13 colonies, and that proposition could not be farther from the truth. It is estimated that no more than 45 to 51% of the total population of the American colonies ever supported the war at all, which means that a huge percentage of the people did not support the cause of American independence and thus remained devoutly loyal to the British Crown. These people were known as Loyalists, or in some circles as Tories, Royalists, or King's Men. Whatever you wanted to call them, their name meant the same. These people were firmly committed to remaining British subjects. They did not wish to separate from Great Britain. They wished to remain as subjects of King George III, come what may, no matter how much British abuse was being inflicted upon the colonies, all right? And their reasons for remaining loyal were very diverse. For some, it was economic. For others, it was moral. For others still, it was political. And certainly, last but not least, for others, it meant freedom. All right? So there was a lot, of reasons for which individuals supported remaining with the British Crown. All right? And nothing could be done to budge them. Okay? The vast majority of Loyalist support in the colonies was found in New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware. And of course, there were Loyalist pockets elsewhere too. But in those colonies is where you found the vast majority of people who remained loyal. Okay. By the time the American Declaration of Independence was adopted by the Second Continental Congress, no royal officials remained in power in any of the colonies. Most had either fled or had been forcibly removed. Okay. Speaking of the Loyalist population, the vast majority of Loyalists tended to either be very wealthy and almost at the bottom of the social ladder as plain farmers. Many Native Americans also remained loyal to the Crown, viewing their odds remaining under the authority of Great Britain much better than under the jurisdiction of a new United States formed from the 13 colonies, which had been inherently hostile to them from the beginning. Many African Americans also remained loyal, like I said, with the promise of freedom. 12,000 African Americans joined the British Army during the Revolutionary War. All right, and the British made good on their promise to free them. All right, thousands left. Sir Guy Carleton made sure of that. All right. When the British departed New York in 1783 with the conclusion of the Revolutionary War, and they were resettled in places such as Canada, West Africa, the Caribbean, and England itself. 4,000 of them alone were settled in Nova Scotia in Canada, and that instantly became the largest free black community in North America, for the record. All right. African Americans were also promised freedom by the Continental Army, the Patriot side, of course, after the British did it. So, they had to even those odds. The British were the first one to see the value of black soldiers fighting on their side. The Patriots came in second place. One very prominent Loyalist statesman was Governor William Franklin, the son of American revolutionary patriot Dr. Benjamin Franklin. Needless to say, the war strained their relationship to the point of being non-existent once the conflict was over, and William Franklin left the colonies after the war. He was the governor of New Jersey, and he moved to settle in England. All right. With respect to being a Loyalist, it was just as dangerous as being a patriot in many places. When you were a Loyalist, you had to ensure that you were in an area that was friendly to you. Otherwise, you could face your property being confiscated. It could have been burned. All right, you could be imprisoned. Being a loyalist was dangerous, all right? Your best bet was to get out of Dodge, okay? And that is exactly what happened after the Revolutionary War. Thousands of loyalists to the British Crown who did not want to be a part of the new United States of America fled to Canada, fled to the Caribbean, fled to England, and fled to other British colonies. They were compensated for their property losses here in the former American colonies, which would, of course, then become the United States, all right? And those loyalists who did remain in the new United States obviously faced dangers. If they renounced their status as British subjects and became American citizens, in all likelihood, depending on where they were, I'll add, they would probably be okay. But in some places, it would probably have been best for them to just, like I said, get out of Dodge and relocate elsewhere, because people knew you were a loyalist. So unless you went somewhere where nobody knew you, or where loyalists, had been accepted, it was perilous to remain where you were, all right? So being a loyalist was very dangerous, like I said, just as much as being a patriot, and you had to be in a place where you would be accepted. So either way, you took a gamble. The Revolutionary War tore families apart just as much as the Civil War, the American Civil War would, nearly a century later. You often had brothers fighting on different sides. You might have a father fighting on one side and his sons fighting on another side. I mean, Revolutionary War was real, people. It tore families apart. It showed people's true colors and where they stood, okay? It was a great insult to some to be called a king's man, okay? And an even greater insult to be called a patriot, all right? All right. These terms thrown at someone else by the other side, you wouldn't want to be called a loyalist in Massachusetts. And in certain parts of Pennsylvania and New York, the last thing you wanted to be called was a patriot, all right? So you had to gauge where you were very carefully. But that's the ups and downs of loyalists during the American Revolution. Of course, there are definite subtopics with this, which I will explore after this history bite. But I hope you've learned a lot from this. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments below. But I'll just conclude on this note that for all Americans who remained loyal to the British Crown before, during, and after the Revolutionary War, they were not about to say anything less than God save the King. Thank you for listening to this History Bite, and I'll talk to you next time.